Hi, so now let's start our experiment. So today we are going to see about the cloud sim experiment, which is on simulation. So in this experiment, we simulate a cloud computing environment using the cloud sim toolkit in Eclipse IDE. So cloud sim is a widely used simulation framework to develop for modeling and evaluating the cloud computing infrastructure and the services. So let's see about the objective of the experiment. So the objective of this experiment is to understand how cloud computing resources are allocated and managed using the simulation. Through this experiment, we demonstrate how a data center, virtual machine, and cloudlets how they were interacting with each other and other execution of the cloud simulation. So the experiment also helps us to analyze how the tasks were scheduled and processed inside a cloud environment. So let's see about the project setup in this Eclipse. So in this implementation, we first create a Java project in Eclipse IDE and name it as a Cloud Sim experiment. So that only we will be taking as a first step. So after creating the project, we add the required Cloud Sim libraries and source files to the project build path. These libraries provide the necessary classes and methods required for the cloud simulation. So the project contains example programs so that demonstrates different cloud simulation scenario. So before that, there is a small error in our program because we will be having that an unwanted file called module info.java. So while you're doing this experiment, you have to remove that file so you can delete it. So it will take some time also. I deleted the file which is unnecessary and unwanted to our program. So now I am giving the console. So we are getting the output. So let us dive into the coding part. So I will explain what we did in the code and I will explain to the output. So as I told that, let's move on to the program structure. So understanding the program structures. Okay. So in this experiment, we use an example program called the Cloud Sim Example 1.java, right? So this program demonstrates a basic cloud simulation process that the program begins by initializing the Cloud Sim library. So this initialization step prepares the simulation environment by defining the number of users, then the simulation calendar, and the event tracing flags. Okay, now, so it is the data center creation. So after initializing the cloud sim environment, the next step is to create a data center. So the data center represents the physical infrastructure of the cloud environment. So it consists of host, processing elements, memory, storage, and bandwidth resources. So these resources are responsible for executing the task submitting by the users. Next, we are going to see about the broker. So once the data center is created, a broker is instantiated that the broker acts as an intermediate between the cloud users and the data center. Okay. Okay, so it is responsible for managing the submissions of virtual machines and the cloudlets to the data center. So next, the virtual machine creation. So in the next step, virtual machine creations or created virtual machines represent the computing environment that execute user applications. So each virtual machine has its own configuration parameters such as CPU processing power, memory, storage capacity, and bandwidth. So at last, we will be creating the cloudlet creation. So after creating the virtual machine, the cloudlets are created. So cloudlets represents the computational tasks or applications submitted by the users. So each cloudlet has attributes such as length, file size, output size, and the number of processing elements required to that. So finally, the simulation. No. Finally, the simulation execution takes place. So once the data center or broker and the virtual machines and the cloudlets are created, the simulation process begins, and the broker submits the virtual machines and the cloudlets to the data center. So the cloud sims then schedules and executes the cloudlets based on the available resources of the virtual machine. So let's see about it in a clearer manner. So let's see. So okay, let's move on to the output analysis. So after the simulation is completed, the results are displayed in the console window. So the output shows the details such as the cloudlet ID, execution status, data center ID, and virtual machine ID, start time and finish time. So the status success indicates that the cloudlet has been executed successfully without any of the errors. So let's move on to the conclusion next. So in the conclusion, this experiment demonstrates the simulation of cloud computing environment used in the Cloud Sim toolkit in Eclipse IDE, right? So the program successfully creates a data center, a broker, virtual machine, and cloudlets, and finally executes the simulation to display the results. So this experiment helps us to understand the basic architecture and working principle of the cloud computing system. Thank you.